Yes, this is the year of the Jubilee, the London Olympics, and some fantastic weather. After our summer ended in March, we have had a lot of this ever since, in the wettest drought you ever heard of. Welcome to Lincolnshire, 2012. And as the rain reduces from bucket loads to just a mild downpour, are they lost? No, they're out there somewhere. This could be them. It's them. Yeah, unbelievable, they found us. Oh, and the bright new shiny motor. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, Adrian.
Can't believe I'm actually taking footage of people outside a little shed, but this is the beginning point of our holiday. I can't believe it.
And we've been through the rain, no more rain.
No. Now we're going to have some in the little thief. Chef. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, you two.
Alright, thank you. Hello.
Well, here we are. Belfry Cottage.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
And we're going down to see find this cafe.
Yes, which is close to a golf course, the other side of the lake or something.
Down around there somewhere.
Yeah. All the windows are open. The bastards who were here first smoked.
No, it hasn't had time to dissipate, really.
But
No.
when you're told it's no smoking,
Yeah.
none of these places are smoking now.
Nope. Oh my God. Mother's going to go and close the window from the outside.
It might be just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, nice, yeah, thank you very much. We've got wood above us. All the items are hidden in the cupboards. We've got a washing machine that wasn't here previously, and the heating is on the floor. I think we'll be very comfy here.
I think this is going to be very nice.
The same.
They're not all exactly the same, which is rather nice.
No.
Because you see some places, and they're even rows of houses, they
Yes.
all look absolutely
Yeah.
alive.
That
They
one
are,
is
but
like
this one
that.
isn't, is it? Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah. We're in Belfry, yeah. It's called the Belfry.
They're all named after golf courses.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Something said about wood
Yeah.
bars. No football shirts, no football shorts, no jeans on the golf
Oh,
course.
that's nice.
Should think not either.
You have to wear proper trousers and a proper shirt. Have
well.
you got
Yeah.
those?
I'm going to have to wear these.
No, and you haven't got proper golf trousers either.
Nope.
Proper trousers.
I'll have to just come to the driving
I
range.
think
then.
as long as you've got flat shoes on, you'll probably be all right.
Silhouetted against the sky, am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, this is me. I
Yeah.
am on Thorpe Golf Range, golf course.
Golf
It's
course.
a nice old course, 9-hole course even.
Yeah.
It's a nice course, which is 9 holes. Nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Duncan would like it. The holes are small, a bit
Yeah.
like Windermere in places by the look of it, but quite challenging, I imagine.
Yeah.
Plenty of trees around, not too many bunkers, but enough rough,
Yeah.
which he's very good at playing out of.
It-
Don't you see this?
Yeah. He is very good at playing out of the rough, isn't he?
He has to be. He
Yeah.
had to be when Damien beat him. Wasn't good enough, were you, Doug?
Oh, and he said you played quite well that day, considering you must control your temper.
And he lost his a couple of times.
I didn't tell me that.
Of course he wouldn't tell you that.
He wouldn't,
Because he's
would
got
he?
a better swing, he didn't take much out of the ground when he hit it.
No, no.
Duncan dribbles on when he's won. Tries to get rid of the bad
Where are
game
you going?
to us.
You're getting further and further
He does
apart.
this, as soon as I switch the
You,
camera
you're
on, you move
stepping
further and
back.
further apart.
Yeah.
Well, you were
If you're on
talking to him and I was
If you're on-
If we
taking
move
it.
apart, Mother has to move back, and that could be quite hilarious.
Yeah, I keep.
Considering the tree's going to be quite
Back to
sharp
back
at
and
the
a couple of
backside.
bookends.
Yeah.
Back to back.
No, I was all right. I don't want a couple of bookends. Go on, get off. Yeah, I can take my tablet now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just saying the window open.
I opened it.
Oh.
God, it's hard work, isn't it? You just had a nice bit of a drive, haven't you?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
We first off stopped at the Asda, which is huge. Got quite a little bit
Got a few bits and
odds
pieces.
ends.
Then we went for a drive.
We had the cathedral in front of us on the top of the hill there, and then we turned round.
Past some
The
Burks.
power stations
Yeah,
were.
past some Burks in cars that ill-fitted the
Oh, there
road.
was quite a few.
And then
people.
wound our way back home.
Had a fight to get indoors.
I had to sort them out.
No, it was very nice.
Very
And
nice.
now we've got what suggests to be a brilliant sunset. Oh no, it's very nice now, Adrian.
Quite moody through there.
Oh, you brought it forward, yeah. Yeah, good. My hand's getting tired.
Okay.
Right, good morning. We have just had a cup of tea.
We haven't, not yet.
Well, we will do. It's been made in the gravy jug. Because we don't have a teapot. We have seen some omissions in places we've stayed in over the years, but this has got to be one of the worst.
Quite badly supplied in a couple of things, and our toilet seat bangs. Do you hear it?
Couldn't say I did last night. No,
Makes a noise. Our toilet.
Mum said to me, I was reading the book, and she said, I think Aidan's snoring in there, and we reckoned you went straight to
I
sleep.
think I did.
And those bloody
The partridges this morning.
It says like 26, but getting louder and louder and louder.
That was seagulls squawking away. Yeah, so what's the plan for today then?
I think we're going to go to... Come over here. I think we're going to go to Newark-On-Trent.
Where are you, Adrian?
I'm over there.
You're over there, right.
Oh my God, what a sight. But I have an announcement from somebody else.
I'm knocking Fackard.
That's been good, didn't
Knackered I am. He's knackered.
it? I'm a little
Mum's knackered. We're all knackered.
I'm sort of all over the place. No, that's not right, is it?
Bird. All over it.
This is a great response to the birds who heard everybody mocking my car being covered with bird shits in Eastbourne. Divine retribution. They've got him back. This is a little bit more lightweight.
You think it's the birds getting him back?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
I did not laugh at him with his car. I felt very sorry for him. You pay for yourself.
What are you looking at?
What was that one your dad had? Camera.
Oh yeah, Canberra.
I've seen the name there.
Yeah. 49. Is that when it was operational?
That's when cameras were, yeah. This one were, this first flew in 54.
Yeah, Dad stopped building Lancaster and went straight onto these.
Yeah.
He said they were beautiful to build, like a Meccano set.
Yeah.
I think he went into doing the electronics on these, I'm not sure.
But this is 99% of it's all electrically
Yeah.
working. I've had a few other pilots turn up that's got this one in the logbook.
Yeah.
Most recent one was Chris Carter. He's one of the pilots for the Blades aerobatic team, because we're the Blades, is an ex-Red as well, and he flew this many a times across the Cyprus.
Right.
Handley Page were at Woodley, and that's who your dad worked for?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
All during the war he worked in various places. At Cheltenham at the beginning of the war, and he went to North London, Dalston, North London, where they got bombed once or twice. He made me laugh one day. He came home for a weekend, he was laid off for a weekend, and he said, got bombed the other night, Paul. I said, oh, did you? I said, you all right? He said, oh yeah, I was all right. He said, the bomber came from that way and we were down this end of the hangar, so we started running up that way. And he said, the bombs followed us, boom, boom, boom. He said, we got to the end and it blew us through the end of the doorway.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, he said he got a bit bruised and that, but he said it was funny, we saw the damn thing coming nearly. He said, we ran like hell.
This is one of the Dove series, called by the RAF the Devon and by the Navy the Sea Devon.
Is this the one that went to Falklands?
I don't know whether that was a Vulcan, the Victor, or what that was.
No, it wasn't the Victor.
I think it was the Vulcan. As this was in the 1960s, and it was the 70s, wasn't it, late 70s, early 80s, Vulcans, this could well have been.
After purchasing its first airframe in 1963 and a further decade of preparation, Newark Air Museum officially opened to the public in April 1973. At Easter 1990 they opened the first aircraft display hall, into which we're going now for a good old look.
It wasn't like that earlier, so what have you been doing to it?
I don't know. I really don't.
No?
I think it was something to do with the shower, soap in my eye, and trying to get the soap out.
You weren't beaten up then?
Well, I don't like to mention
Shock
things
horror.
like that.
I'm choosing not to answer that one.
I see.
No, you stay out of it. Yeah, don't have anything to do with it. Oh, yeah, carried quite a bit of boost, didn't it?
Anti-submarine warfare.
This is quite impressive, actually. Quite a big hangar. Loads of stuff around. Brought back a few memories for Dad. He's talking about it when his dad was working on Vulcans and things during the war.
Put it down. Taking a photograph is so painful. All right, I'll put it down. Excellent. Are we happy with that?
No.
Bloody hell.
HRB studio equipment, circa 1830.
When anything happens to us somewhere amongst our effects, you'll find real identity cards and Russian books.
Real imitation ones they are.
In 1994, the museum trustees started negotiations to expand to the south, with the aim of buying enough farmland to guarantee its long-term future. And just over a year later, they completed that. Very soon now, we're going into the second display hall. This opened to the public in November of 2004, built with help from the Heritage Lottery Fund.
And
There's a lot of stuff here.
a lot of stuff here. Over there, look, you've got a couple of bits of old aircraft if you have a look.
Oh yeah.
In the meantime, we'll go into
Go into shed number...
Machine Hall number 2.
Is that what it's called?
Aircraft Hall number 2.
Oh, right.
And I imagine it's quite as impressive as the first one, which had quite a lot packed in.
It did.
It did indeed.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of stuff here. Oh, that's something, isn't
Yeah.
The Roll of Honour of Training.
it? Yeah.
My word.
this is a quiz that even Mother can do. So let's have a look. The Queen Bee was built from which aircraft? Was it the DH-82 Tiger Moth? Was it the Eurofighter Typhoon? Or was it the one I can't see because she's hidden
No,
it?
I can't
The
see
Lancaster. Oh, the Queen Bee.
It is the Queen Bee, yes.
Very good. How long is the Zephyr UAV, which is unmanned aerial vehicle, aiming to keep flying? Is it 3 hours, 3 days, or 3 months? Mother says 3 months. And it is.
I've heard that one.
Oh, fantastic. You scored 9 out of 10.
Oh, failure then.
Yeah.
When Dad was still knowledgeable about the aircraft, there was the country built TSR-2. Well, I reckon it was the 50s because Dad was still active then with the Air Force and that. Anyway, it was 4 years before its time of anything else in the world. They were 4 years behind with this. And it was a nice looking aircraft. It was long, sleek, it looked like a square box in a way.
A bigger version of the one over your shoulder. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I don't know what that is, but it's bigger than that. It was unbeatable, and because of cost, the Labour Party stopped it. We had 1 or 2 models of it, but they stopped anymore, no more production. They broke up all the moulds and
Scrap
machinery.
the plans.
Scrapped the plans, burnt them all, everything. There are still 1, 2, maybe 3 models still available to see, and one is at Duxford. Because we saw it there.
Okay.
I no sooner saw it than I said, that's a TSR-2. It was such a beautiful thing, but they didn't even try to sell it. Utter stupidity.
So we could have been ahead of the world, but the cost of
We
it
weren't.
the government decided it was
Yeah.
crippling us.
We've had so much on it that
It more
would have-
wouldn't have hurt. As Dad says, it was 4 years ahead of anything else even the Americans had in the world. So there we are.
Well, that's one sizable museum and very impressive too. And now we move into Newark-On-Trent itself.
We're at the castle, which is just in front of the river there. And this is quite an impressive little display to show us where we are in the scheme of Newark.
Lying on the Fosse Way, Newark's origins may have been Roman. In the Civil War, the castle was besieged by parliamentary forces and was relieved by Prince Rupert in a battle known as the Relief of Newark.
You could do, but I've got us all 3 on it.
Oh, right.
So we're on a cup of tea.
Down by the lock.
And on the menu is a lot of keepers' ploughman.
And the law.
Keepers' tea rooms and garden.
Oh, yeah, how can you see us backwards though?
I've turned the thing round.
Yeah, I know that, but why does it show?
Because it's pointing at us.
Right, yes, I think I'm with you.
If you go down there in a canoe, it's at your own risk.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. British waterways accept no liability for any damage, property or
person.
Makes sense. Well, come on, honestly, what do you think of some of
Well,
Newark-Upon-Trent?
this bit is pretty.
This bit is
It's
pretty.
not been bad from the castle along here.
There is a certain charm about
There's a lot
the
of
stuff, isn't
old
it?
places around
Yeah.
here, I think.
We haven't seen all of it, but
I
then
think seeing that car park this afternoon. the fact
Not a
that it
pretty
was
car park. And $3.70 for about an hour, was it? Ridiculous.
For an hour.
That's a national car park for you
No,
folks on a
£3
Sunday.
for an hour and
Luckily, I spoke to Dave at the machine, and he said, "Just say you spoke to Dave, and you'll
Yeah.
get out." Here we go. I got it. Yeah.
Well, we've had it all today. Great scenery, nice bit of town, and police chases, and I can't get both of you in at the same time.
And I'm still connected.
You both wandered off.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
I wasn't really taking...
Oh, you're miserable old fool,
Isn't
isn't he?
Miserable old bat.
Right, well, just for that, I'm going to take a picture of Zizzy's where we think we might end up going. There it is, in the old town hall.
In medieval times, the town became a centre for the wool and cloth trade, which explains a large marketplace, which is lined with historic buildings. The Church of St Mary Magdalene is a Grade 1 listed building, notable for its tower and octagonal spire, which, at 236 feet, is the tallest in the country. The Victorians established many new buildings, and with the industrial expansion he also brought to the town, the population doubled by the end of the 19th century. What was the A1 that went through Newark saw regular flooding, so it was raised in 1770. An oak bridge also replaced the old dilapidated one by the castle.
Tiny size.
Where are these corn flakes now? Have we moved them? Just on there.
Why would I move them?
No idea. Why would we move them? Oh, get a load of that. Just to prove it, I'm here as well.
Just a quick.
Yeah, I'm here as well, yeah.
Oh, no, I'll do it in a minute.
No, we can take you that later. In the meantime, good morning, all.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Sleep well?
I slept very well.
You sure you don't
Very
want any
well.
cereals?
I'm sure, thank you.
All right.
Where's himself then?
Eh?
Where's himself? Ah, right. Private.
It's in the facilities.
I think I shall leave that.
Horncastle was once home to its internationally famous Great August Horse Fair, at one time Britain's greatest horse trading event. It ended in 1948 at a time when horses were no longer in general use for agriculture.
Well, folks, it's beginning to rain.
Yeah,
It's not desperate at the moment,
but
but it's enough to nearly get you wet.
it looked different 12 years ago, didn't it?
Yeah?
Didn't it, Jess?
Yes, it did. Was it 12 years?
Yeah.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
You can't think of it being that long ago.
Remember what it is? It's raining. It's raining quite hard. Yeah. Well, this be a bit of Horncastle we haven't seen before. I'm not going to stay here looking at it long
I
either.
don't want to see it much more again, anyway.
Ah, what we're in now. We're in the fish and chip cafe.
Yeah, your idea.
Good.
I was looking forward to a pie.
Put it back on. We can take a sausage roll or something over too.
That would be nice.
Yes,
Wouldn't it?
Couldn't we?
that'd be nice.
We could.
First indubitably. Tell you what, this is lovely. It's one of the nicest I've been here. Nice.
It's a wet and warm cup of tea.
It's a bit more than wet and warm. It's really nice.
Thank you.
What do you say, Winnie?
I said Horncastle served its purpose 12 years ago when we
Went there on the bus.
went
Yeah.
one of us because we couldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As he's not saying anything else, I'll film the salad instead.
You said they'd run out of peas, haven't they?
They run out of beans.
I know run out of beans. But according to the menu, they've run out of peas.
They shouldn't have run out of baked beans.
No, they shouldn't have run out of
Every other
beans.
place you go into, they'll say mushy peas or peas.
You don't get the choice here.
No, but you don't know that until you ask.
When
If you
ask,
don't ask, you
find out.
get mushy peas anyway.
There you go.
The only time I had mushy peas was once in the army. It was only because I was bloody hungry I ate them. Aidan went to fetch some bread and butter and he told me off for not filming him doing it.
Yes.
So I'm going to film him now. There's his bread and butter. Hello, Mother. There's Adrian's. This is that white head in the way. Look at this, it's all very nice. The only dodgy film...
Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes.
Right. Look at that. It looks nice as well. Aidan's not eating with us.
Mother's doing pretty well, ploughing through her senior citizens' portions.
She's decided she's had enough now.
Ah,
I think I've had too many chips.
do you? Oh, we're on now, are we?
Did you enjoy Horncastle?
Yeah, well, I found it was quite all right, but...
Well, your face is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Eh?
Oh, put it up.
What are you doing?
I don't know. How did you enjoy Horncastle?
Well, I found it quite disappointing.
So did I.
12 years ago when we came up and there was a petrol crisis, we travelled there by bus because it was one place we could actually get to.
Yeah.
So with the sunshine out, as it did eventually, and all that, it seemed as if it was, not a bad little town.
Not a bad little town.
And we came there today and it was shit.
Yeah. I agree. I didn't like it at all.
It didn't like it at all. Shall we going back here?
Would this look nicer driving through?
It did indeed. Well, we remember, Louth, don't we?
Nice quiet road it was.
We sure
Yes. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. We shall remember this. We're going to have a look now and
Yes.
see what we can find.
Yes, but we're going to go down the road because that's where that deli is, I think.
Oh, is it?
I think it's still there.
Ah,
It
right.
used to be 12 years ago.
Oi, you.
Keep
Told you
quiet.
before, shut up.
Wish you'd point that thing at me.
Oi, face ache.
I was just so What did you say?
I said, oi, face
I was
ache.
just so surprised by his butting in there on my interview. Gosh.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Adrian. Your father is being vulgar.
If that's
Shut
an
up.
interview, I would talk to my teddy bear better than that.
Oh dear. I think we finished. We're in Louth.
Yeah, we are.
You're looking better already.
Yeah, you've had something to eat.
Just have a cup of tea.
You've completely changed. You've gone through the roof.
He doesn't believe it.
He doesn't know, but yeah.
No, I've just changed. He said I've just changed.
Get out of it, you.
Louth is known as the capital of the Lincolnshire Wolds and developed where the ancient Barton Street trackway crossed the River Ludd in an area where the Wolds meet the marsh. The town skyline is dominated by St James Church. Despite its spire being shorter than both Norwich and Salisbury cathedrals, it is the tallest Anglican parish church in the United Kingdom. Independent retailers account for 70% of all businesses in the town. In 2012, the BBC's Country File named Louth as Britain's favourite market town, and it fights hard to protect them too. A Sainsbury's got rejected, but Aldi was seen as a good idea on 2 counts. One, because it was going to be built on derelict land, and then they wouldn't be generally competing with other smaller retailers.
You walked up before.
I walked up there, the top of St Mary's.
You took some good pictures right there.
Oh yeah, we don't have to wander down to McLeod's. I was just trying to remember there was a Scottish sounding name.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
And there it is. What you're saying is nicer than Horncastle?
Yeah, I think so, don't you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Horncastle was a means to an end on that holiday.
Yeah. Going back today was a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh dear, I don't feel fragile. No, I'm alright.
Hey, good.
Good morning.
Where are we going this morning?
Aviation Heritage, it's called.
Aviation Heritage.
Down near Sleaford.
Okay.
We're going hoping to see a Lancaster taxi.
Oh yeah, the eye. Quickly. Let's get a close up of the eye. Oh my God! Look at that. What is going on there?
They both took turns in hitting me.
Best you've looked all week.
I know.
And it's only Tuesday.
And that's pretty better,
Oh heck. Time to go. That's a display made for widescreen. Okay.
Come on.
Seems reasonable. He does. There he is. It's Bansom, not Branson.
Sarah is on my side.
That's S-I-R, not C-U-R. Just for the record, folks.
Imagine we go in here.
Yep. Coffee shop.
breakfast.
All day breakfast. Could be up for that.
Right. There's all the people, look.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look. Look at this.
Park on the grass. Park on the grass. Oh, that'll do.
Well, are you enjoying it so far? You've only had a coffee.
Yes, we've only had a coffee so
Another
far.
rubbish.
Yeah.
And out there through the window is the Lancaster, the
Yeah.
Lancaster,
Yeah.
which will be taxiing along the airstrip a little way at about 11 o'clock.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, they said we would. They're all getting geared up for it. and so
Is
will
it
we.
very nice and warm?
What, the coffee? Yeah, it was lovely.
No, the day of
The day is cold. It's 12 degrees. It's a typical spring day,
Yeah.
which in June is disappointing.
Disappointing, yeah. Nothing like Sunday when we went to the other airplane.
Nothing like it at all.
Oh. Now I'm going to...
Just to find a loo, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we might as well tell the
Just for a
listeners and
change.
viewers, yes. Oh dear. Oh dear. Father. Maybe yours was Tail End Charlie, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Jim,
Oh, Jim. But you never fired a shot in anger, you
Well, that's what he told me.
say? Yeah. Here we go.
An X611, or Just Jane, was built by Austin Motors at Longbridge near Birmingham in April 1945. She was meant to be part of the RAF's Tiger Force in the Far East. However, Japan's surrender made these aircraft surplus to requirements, and NX611 ended up in storage at Llandorf, where she stayed until 1952. After that, a checkered career followed. The next 13 years saw her perform a variety of duties in France and New Caledonia before the French presented her to the Historical Aircraft Preservation Society. She was overhauled in Sydney before undergoing the gruelling 9-day, 12,000-mile flight back to Britain, where she landed at Biggin Hill on the 13th of May 1965.
He's going around, is he? There he is.
And then in 1972, after a spell in Lavenham in Suffolk, she was put up for auction in Blackpool. This is where farmers Harold and Fred Panton come into the frame. They'd served in Bomber Command during World War II, along with brother Christopher, who sadly died during the Nuremberg raid of March 1944. Thinking that NX611 would be the perfect monument to their brother, Fred and Harold went to Blackpool, but after failing to reach the reserve price, she was withdrawn and later sold privately to Lord Lilford. Harold and Fred's persistence paid off though, when in September 1983 they struck a deal with Lord Lilford's agents. Once NX611 completed its agreed 10 years as RAF Scampton's Gate Guardian, the RAF brought her to East Kirkby, some 16 years since the Blackpool auction.
Well, what do you think of that then?
Brilliant.
Beautiful.
And that's the one thing I remember from the war,
No.
the groaning noise of the
Huge engines.
whole squadron of those going over.
Yeah.
On one or two of those very big raids, I went out in the back garden and you could see them all over the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a terrific sound. They weren't very high because they took off from Oxfordshire and came over Reading, and they were still sort of gaining height. 7 men packed into that and went to war, and 55,000 of them were killed. 8 those that were wounded, and then they got no recognition until very recently.
I saw a memorial to the bombers.
In London.
That
Straight
got
after
defaced as well.
Yeah, because of Dresden.
Yeah.
Because of Dresden.
It was out and out war. I'm not
I
sorry
know.
for the people of Dresden. It was
No,
out and out
it was
war.
out and out
They
war.
started
They
it.
started. Look at
We know.
Coventry, flattened.
Yeah.
Southampton, flattened. Portsmouth, flattened.
For political correctness, I should not use that bit in the film, but I'm going to.
You use it because
we feel
are
passionately
adamant
about
that
this,
it was
folks.
necessary.
Oh yes.
And poor old who was it in charge of the bombers?
Harris.
Harris.
Yeah, vilified.
Yeah, Harry.
Well,
He shouldn't have
needs-
been.
He needs to be treated like a proper
Hero.
soldier of war. Oh, I'm glad we came,
Yeah.
even if I did have to
Are you
drive.
glad?
Yeah. Seeing that, what do you reckon?
You won't see anything like that much again, Adrian. As a little boy, I saw these through Reading during the war, and they carried parts of fuselage. It could be any sort of bomber or fighter. Some aircraft, they got on there. Some of those with folding up wings,
Yeah.
they'd put on there and fold the wings up, and it'd be a wide load in the road.
Right.
But they had preference of way. I've seen them with all sorts of things. Gliders was one of the last things I saw during the war. I didn't know what they were at the time. I've taken a picture of that because it brings back memories.
Because it does. There's the plane going backwards, look.
What's the name? Oh, Just Jane.
Just Jane.
The engine blank, 3 out, yes.
It did, didn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I've got a picture of that.
Brandon, you bought national savings stamps each week.
To help pay for the war.
Thankfully, we we never had a gas attack during the war. So
No.
greatly prized these jackets after the war. People, they used to ride on motorbikes with them and that.
Yeah.
Warm.
So this was an air raid shelter, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar anyway.
You can see it from this end as well.
Need a bit of protection.
Sorry much.
Nice and comfortable in here for you, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Carpet,
Have to take it sideways, otherwise
They used to have pets on the station.
That's what made me think of it.
Orbit 2,000 feet, over. Copy, Uncle, understood. Orbiting 2,000 feet, out. Number 5, funnels. Roger, number 5. You are clear to land. Turn right at the end of the runway and you will be directed to a waiting ambulance. Over.
Go to the radio room. Action shot this is. Yeah, thank you for that. Go on, get inside.
Hello.
I was, yeah.
I'm awfully sorry.
Yeah,
actually.
Take a picture or two of Adrian because he won't have any.
Yes.
What do you think of it so far?
I think it's very good. A lot of information. We've just seen the escape hut, which has got all the stories and pictures and all that about people who escaped, especially the last one who got away down the Comity line, which of course Secret Army is based.
Yeah. Did you see the workers for the Comity line that were executed?
Loads and loads.
Terrible.
It should be well remembered.
Now we're in the radio,
Some were
the
shot,
radio
some were
room.
hanged.
Yeah.
French people who were so brave.
That's a bit different
I want to
to.
carry that around. I did hear one time that of all the population of France, the actual people that stood up against the Germans were about 110,000, they estimated.
Just this bomb in here.
Nice little bomber.
Yeah.
But during the war, my father, who worked in aircraft industry in Cheltenham,
Yeah.
if you want to come to Cheltenham, I got a week's leave. You couldn't come home, you had a week's leave.
The 4 NP294 was built in 1944 by F. Hills and Son furniture manufacturers at their works in Trafford Park, Manchester. NP294 is undergoing long-term restoration. That's the blast shelter over there. We're looking at the wrong thing, chaps.
Don't climb on top.
Oh,
Right.
I don't know what this is.
So this over here then? Oh, it's a WC. Fantastic. All right, I won't go there then.
I'm going in it.
That's what I didn't really want to know. But this is pie, chips and beans with gravy.
You've got jacket potato.
What have you got? Steak guinea?
Stankin' with beans,
Yeah.
not peas.
And I've got chicken and mushroom. So there he is, he's back with me lunch. He's had a dirty big bit of... What did you have?
Upper and blackberry. Not bad.
Yeah, he claims it's so good he can't talk. And you and I are sharing sticky
Lemon and
and chocolate cake, yeah.
That does quite fudgy, that chocolate.
It does. Oh, excellent.
Not me.
I definitely heard...
I wouldn't do anything like that, you know that.
No. All right. If you say so, it must be true.
I do say so.
However, I have to confess,
It can't be true.
when I came in here, I had to do the same.
Oh, God. Well, what am I walking about with today?
What a desecratious way to end this tour of the Lincolnshire Air
I think that's
Museum.
what you both thought of it.
Yeah. Not bad, is it?
Did you bring it out again?
Just so you take a picture of it.
Yeah. Just too late to get it as it was going in underneath. Yeah.
Yeah. can understand why they give you a warning, because it is really wet and it's an odd setting for a castle. I suppose it would be easily defensible with all this water around it.
Oh, quite.
Ranulph, Earl of Chester, founded Bolingbroke Castle in 1220, shortly after returning from the Fifth Crusade. Originally surrounded by a large water-filled moat, it is one of the earliest examples of a uniform castle which featured a twin-towered gatehouse, but it was unusual as it was built without an inner defensive keep. Instead, the castle relied on thick defensive walls and the 5 D-shaped defensive corner towers.
Now you can understand why they warn you about having stout footwear, but then it opens up into somewhere like this, which is a bit better.
Ranulph died in 1932 without a male heir. Bolingbroke eventually came into the ownership of John of Gaunt through marriage. His wife gave birth to a son in 1367 who was consequently known as Henry Bolingbroke before he became king in 1399. The castle had been mainly built of Spilsby greenstone, a porous limestone substandard as a building material because it is prone to rapid deterioration when exposed to weather. By the 15th and 16th century, the structure had fallen into disrepair. A survey found that all the towers were effectively beyond repair.
Might have been hard for Dad with his balance round there.
Oh yeah,
where there was
definitely.
no path virtually.
Well, there isn't any pathway in places.
Not really. It's just where people have pushed through, isn't it?
It was badly damaged during the Battle of Winceby and changed hands a number of times and was deliberately slighted in 1652 to prevent any further use. The towers and walls were torn down and dumped into the moat. Heritage Lincolnshire took ownership in 1995. During summertime, the castle is home to numerous events, including performances of Shakespeare. Tupholme Abbey is one of 7 medieval monasteries within the Lincolnshire Linewolds area. Most of these were founded in the Witham Valley because of the power and influence of the nearby city of Lincoln, but also because the river provided a means of carrying wool to the important markets of both Boston and Lincoln. There was once a narrow canal that connected Tupholme to the River Witham, and this was most likely how they transported their goods out, but also how they first transported the stone in to build the abbey. As you can see, this is elevated above low-lying surrounding area. In fact, the name Tupholme literally means Island of the Sheep, being formed from tup, a country word for sheep, and holm, which is Saxon for a raised piece of land. The abbey at Tupholme was founded around 1155 by an abbot plus 12 others of the Premonstratensian order. They were known as canons because of the white habits and caps they wore. As with many abbeys, Tupholme was built to a familiar pattern. The church and other buildings were arranged around the central cloisters. The help of archaeologists and digital reconstruction techniques allows us to closely visualize how Tupholme actually looked. The abbey lasted for around 375 years until 1536, when King Henry VIII famously invoked his dissolution of the monasteries. By demolishing the church and incorporating other ranges into domestic accommodation and then laying formal gardens, Sir Thomas Hemage practically eradicated most evidence of the abbey's existence. And now very little remains that either commanded a position here on the Island of the Sheep.
There's Farty doing his diary by candlelight. Long old day, eh? Mother's cooking us bangers and fresh farm eggs in big old rolls. They're going to be very nice. And I'm doing the most important bit of all, the coffee.
Oh, right.
What we watching? Alright, Cash in the Attic. Horrendous television and things that go bump in the night setup. It's not user friendly, is it?
You press the wrong button and suddenly you don't know where you've gone.
No.
I don't mind the place, it just has not got the comfort factor.
Hasn't got a comfort
No,
factor.
I don't know what it is. This high roof distorts the television.
Lucy did say, what's the matter with you? Then she said, you're echoing. I said, I tried to explain to her at the place then.
Yeah.
And she said, I said, it's a very high roof.
And that blooming telly, with a tinny sound like it has.
You don't want to have a degree to turn the television on.
It ain't far away, actually, Sherwood Forest.
It's there.
Okay.
It's just there.
Well, we could do that.
We haven't got time. But if we're going out today,
Yeah.
and we're going to Lincoln tomorrow, Friday's going to be a shit day.
Well, it's going to be a bit rainy, yeah. See how the day pans out. Has it been raining?
It rained during the night, certainly, because the deck was... Oh.
6 o'clock in, the sun was... and it was beautiful.
That was quick.
That's all right now.
Then we're off.
We're off to see the wizard.
The wonderful wizard of the Transport Museum at Lincoln, in an industrial state. Fantastic.
With the weather looking as dour as it was, despite early shouts of Sherwood Forest from Dad, a suitable indoor venue was found by Mum. She'd come up with the idea of taking me to see the Lincolnshire Road Transport Museum, home to the Lincolnshire Vintage Vehicle Society. The aim of the LVVS is to preserve, restore and operate historic road transport vehicles, and its permanent public exhibition makes it one of the most successful independent museums of its type in the country. This is one of my favourites. It's a Bristol coach, which was unusually operated as a bus, and it went around the county before coming home, and with input from the Lincolnshire Cooperative Society, emerged from restoration in a blue and white based livery which advertised the Lincolnshire Co-op. During the summer of 2011, the bus made several appearances as part of Lincolnshire Co-op's 150th anniversary celebrations, featuring in events around the county.
What are you looking at?
The luggage rack on the back.
Yeah, one of those on there for
That's
us
where
car.
you put your luggage.
Yeah.
And then it comes out and makes it bigger. That piece folds out and makes it bigger.
Jaguar company's the Swallow Sidecar Company. They used to make sidecars.
The museum is staffed by real enthusiasts. They have a personal stake in looking after more than 65 vintage cars, buses and commercial vehicles spanning over 80 years of road transport history.
Can I have a cup of tea, please?
Perhaps the favourite one of mine from my youth was the Bristol Low-Decker. It was built to low bridge specifications, meaning it was 13 foot 6 inches high and it could fit under many otherwise troublesome railway bridges of the time. Overall, it's a nostalgia trip for those a bit older and a great lesson for younger people in how things have changed. Seriously, there isn't a Boris Bendy bus in sight. Their vehicles have not only been restored to a really high standard, but they're also painstakingly researched. Descriptions in front of each vehicle are informative and detailed, while those working there will be more than happy to fill in any missing details. But being so crammed together, it was often difficult and impossible at times to try and get down in between some of them to get a better view. Space costs money, of course, and I have to be fair here and say that the LVVS has put on a very impressive display of craftsmanship and of dedication in a very welcoming ambience, and all under one big roof. It must be quite a feat in itself to extract the vehicles they need for each open day. The majority of the restored exhibits are in fantastic condition. It's clearly a labour of love.
In 2002, the A.A. decided to get rid of all their roadside boxes. And they applied for here and were
Shows this is live, folks.
one that was situated in Moffat in Scotland.
They didn't get it because the Scottish authorities applied for and were given listings for all the AA boxes, so they've still got theirs.
There's still a couple left in England.
Yeah.
There's one at the top of Porlock Hill.
Heritage look after them, apparently.
Do they?
According to that.
Oddington Farm Shop, not bad. This is it, manna from heaven. Look at all this. And he is down there buying a cake. What cake's he having then?
Cherry and almond.
Cherry and almond, is he?
White chocolate.
Right, well, we've caught you. What's that?
Yorkshire brag.
Yorkshire brag.
Moist fruit cake.
Oh, right, okay.
Big gingerbread loaf. Slice it, butter it, try it with cheese.
Oh, right, okay. So, you better take away cake then, have you?
Cherry and almond.
You're going to enjoy that, are you?
Well, Mum will have a bit of it, wouldn't he? Can't really go any faster, Adrian.
No.
Railway crossing coming up.
Oh, yes.
These back lights are flashing. Here we go. Get ready. Well, you got most of it. Just take it careful, will you, girl? Crying out
One
loud.
behind you.
Yeah, she nearly caught me up on the bloody crossing.
Oh, dear.
I forgot. I thought
You're wandering.
Yeah, I'm wondering. And there's spots of water on it now.
What?
Told you not to splash.
Yeah, it's your fault over there keeps splashing. Stop it. And come on.
Come on.
Stop messing about.
You get up.
Stop messing. I can't.
In there.
Careful.
Yeah.
All this pride here, isn't it?
You managed it.
Did it?
Hooray! Hooray! That's enough of that.
You really got to pull on that handle, haven't you?
You have indeed. Have you done it?
Yeah.
We're off to Lincoln. He's nearly in shock.
I am in shock. It's really...
Idiot.
He wanted
He
to
said we
get
had to
into
go
town early.
So we got up. And guess who didn't?
Apparently me.
No, not apparently.
Not apparently.
Apparently definitely me. Definitely maybe, apparently definitely maybe me.
Come on now, then.
Definitely maybe. Shall
Let's
we
go.
go now?
Come
Bye.
on. Bye.
I've had more bird mess on the car.
I'm parked down by the lake and I'm fine.
You have been so
Oh, don't you go off, Peter. Don't you go off, Peter.
We've just got to Lincoln Castle. It's coffee time. Or latte time.
Latte, coffee.
Scoffy, is it?
Coffee.
Scoffy.
Coffee time.
Coffee.
Well, I think it's time for walkies now.
I think it is.
Bye.
This imposing Georgian building was built as a Lincoln County jail in the 1780s. Part of the front wing held the debtors. Apparently they would feel safer inside than the outside world, which could be very unforgiving toward them. The other part was the governor's house, underneath which was the basement where he kept his cellar of wine. The layout was based on the then fashionable idea that crime was a social disease. Therefore, keep convicts apart and they would be cured of their criminal tendencies. Hence, these individual cells were a revolutionary concept in those days. Each cell had running water and a flush toilet. It was a very new and progressive concept. Even in the exercise yard, prisoners were kept in total isolation. They were masked and known only by numbers, so they didn't recognise or communicate with each other. The principle of isolation was taken to amazing extremes in the prison chapel, and all wards of court had to attend Christian worship. It was interesting to see how they managed to stop them from seeing each other. Prisoners were locked into individual pews and couldn't even catch a glimpse of whoever was next door.
Oh, you're not wearing masks. Sorry.
We're not wearing masks up here. I think we must be the murderers. I'm not sure.
Oh, heck.
Their only view would be upwards towards the preacher, whose vision of their hell to come must have had them quaking with visions of fire and brimstone.
I'm gathered here today. Yes. Good stuff.
There is one last interesting fact about this, and that's about those who were going to be hanged. They all sat together in the back. It was felt that it didn't matter if they saw one another anyway, because by that time they were beyond redemption.
Dark. Dear old man. It's a bit slow up there, down there, wasn't it?
I've been up more bloody steps in this holiday
Well, you've
than
got
any before, I
loads
think.
more to come.
And there's a lot more to come.
Just today.
Just today.
Yeah.
And
Go.
probably tomorrow they'll find a lot more.
Go.
Go.
Now. Bye.
In 1217, King Henry III issued a new version of Magna Carta, and this was issued together with a new charter dealing with that of the Royal Forest. It was in a proclamation of February 1218 that the name Magna Carta first appears, and that was in order to distinguish the Great Charter from its shorter forest brother. On the 11th of February 1225, at the same time as issuing the final and definitive version of Magna Carta, Henry III likewise issued a new version of the Charter of the Forest. Thereafter, the charters, as they were called, were always linked together. In substance, it is similar to the Forest Charter of 1217, but includes a statement about the granting of a tax in return for the charter, and the long same witness list as in the 1225 Magna Carta. And like the original Magna Carta, the 1225 Forest Charter was also sealed with the King's Great Seal.
Supposed to make the seal vaguely.
Hasn't done a lot, has it?
No, it has, but you need a lot more pressure than
So it's only right.
the ordinary person can
Here,
do.
we can now make our own King's Seal.
Yep,
We now slap it in under here.
yeah.
Go.
Oh, there we are.
It doesn't.
Have a cup of tea yet? Oh, it's
No.
1:45.
We had a coffee.
Yes.
What was that? The stump of a tree made into a...
Yeah, they're about carved bits on.
Yeah.
Not too far back, not too far.
The bathhouse is the small building on the embankment dating from 1805. It was probably used as a laundry for the prison rather than being a bathhouse. Under the central section of the building is a cistern that collects rainwater. The well you see here dates from Roman times and possibly even earlier. The shaft is 40 foot deep with 12 foot of water at the bottom, standing at the natural water table. Okay, so the clue here is in the name. Steep Hill is very steep, but well worth the effort. It's full of quirky independent shops with antiques, retro and vintage stores sitting side by side with tea shops, pubs and restaurants, all of which would be very welcome for the weary traveller on their way up.
A quaint old English hydraulic vehicle.
The cobbled hill winds its way down from the old quarter to the city centre. It was voted Britain's best street and is literally steeped in history. The straight, which you'll find at the bottom end of Steep Hill, has a range of fashion and designer stores. Here you'll also find Goody's Traditional Sweet Shop, one of an increasing number laying claim to the title of Britain's oldest sweet shop. It might well be, but who cares when taking a trip back in time to a more innocent childhood crammed full of sugary goodness. In small doses, of course.
Yes, I do. We were waiting for you.
enjoying your tea and your flapjack, are you?
Yeah, I am. Lovely. Very
You
nice.
enjoying your tea and scone?
Kerry type flapjack.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Spruce is making its way round dry.
Yeah. Did you enjoy your unrocky rocky road?
It was very nice, thank you very much. There's nothing left.
Very nice.
Tea cake with lashings of butter.
Quite a bit of butter.
Yeah.
But lots of currants.
Good, that's better than the one at Horncastle.
That was a fruit
Better
scone.
than the scone at Horncastle.
Well, here I had 2 currants.
I should have complained, really.
Maybe 3 if we were lucky.
But coffee and Baileys in the afternoon, Adrian.
Yes.
And you've been all the way down the bottom of the road to the sweet shop.
To the what?
The sweet shop.
I thought you said the swing shop.
No, the sweet shop. All down steep hills.
The Cathedral Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Lincoln is known more simply as St Mary's Cathedral. For those of you who prefer it another way, Lincoln Cathedral is the seat of the Anglican bishop. It was Bishop Remigius who commenced work on this building in 1072, which continued in several phases throughout the medieval period. It has not survived intact though. In fact, some bad luck got in its way over the centuries. A great fire ravaged it in 1125, and then a mere 60 years later, more serious damage occurred when it was partially destroyed by an earthquake, one of the largest felt in the UK. The damage was so extensive, the cathedral was described as having split from top to bottom. Of that pre-earthquake cathedral, only the lower part of the west frontage and its 2 attached towers can be seen in today's cathedral. The experimental nature of building the central tower is thought to have contributed to its collapse in 1237. The replacement tower and spire was 160 metres tall. That made Lincoln Cathedral the tallest building in the world, and so it was for 238 years, until a raging storm in 1548 caused the central tower spire to collapse and destroy a large section of the northeast transept roof in the process. They never rebuilt it after that. 1644, and Cromwell's forces caused damage to the cathedral during their siege on Lincoln. And then it was advised that the West Tower spire should be removed because their additional weight was endangering the whole structure at that end. That was in 1724. They were only removed in 1807. Things have been generally quieter in the last couple of centuries. In 2005, the cathedral achieved fame for having a bit part in the Hollywood movie The Da Vinci Code, where the final scenes were shot within the chapter house. In terms of floor area, Lincoln Cathedral remains the 3rd largest in Britain after St Paul's and York Minster. It is highly regarded by architectural scholars. The eminent Victorian writer John Ruskin declared, "I have always held that the Cathedral of Lincoln is out and out the most precious piece of architecture in the British Isles, and roughly speaking worth any 2 other cathedrals we have."
It's 10 to 9 again, and this has been quite a concerted effort in a limited space to make breakfast. Well done.
Thank you.
Oh, that looks awful.
Oh, shit. There's no space here for anything, is there?
Yeah, we could pull the table out a little bit more.
Yeah, we could
I was
have.
often wondering why we haven't. It's too late.
Stop!
And so we spend another day in Lincoln, and where better than the Museum of Lincolnshire Life. Its varied collection celebrates the history and culture of Lincolnshire and its people through from 1750 to the present day, reflecting commercial, domestic, agricultural, industrial and community life. This fine example of Victorian military architecture is a Grade II listed building. It isn't far from the castle and cathedral, so if you have a mind you can do all 3 in a day, or so I'm told. Anyway, by Friday we were perhaps flagging a bit, as ever. Staggeringly, the collection numbers over 250,000 objects. Some of these are on display, such as in the many varied period room and shop settings, which show a lot of this stuff off, but only with its limited room. A fair bit necessarily has to rest in storage.
London Gazette, 29th of June, 1915. Charles Sharp, number 7942, Acting Corporal, 2nd Battalion, Lincolnshire Regiment. Award of the Victoria Cross for most conspicuous bravery near Rouge Blanc on the 9th of May 1915. When in charge of a blocking party sent forward to take a portion of the German trench, he was the first to reach the enemy's position, and, using bombs with great determination and effect, he cleared them out of a trench 50 yards long. By this time, all his party had fallen. He was then joined by 4 other men, with whom he attacked the enemy, again with bombs, and captured a further trench 250 yards long.
Nearly a century after World War I commenced, well, we saw the World War I tank exhibition. Lincoln is home to the original battle tank. Local company Foster's developed the prototype battle tank, which went into production only 115 days later. The model on display here is named Daphne, and up close you can appreciate the sheer size of the beast. Imagine this grinding its way over the terrain towards you, tearing up anything in its way.
So you can remember a lot of this, can you?
I remember some of it. Could remember quite a bit of that in the other museum. And it says there about butter being made, just cream, taking the cream off the top by hand and making it into butter. I can remember that being done.
You can remember a lot of these things.
Very interesting, isn't it?
A lot of it, isn't it?
The Victorian barracks it is housed in was built for the Royal North Lincoln Militia in 1857 and was in use by various territorial and other army units right up until 1963. On the 29th of July 1969, the museum opened here and was run independently by the Lincolnshire Association for the Arts and Heritage. 5 years later, it was transferred to the Lincolnshire County Council.
Look at this fine lacework, and they did it by candlelight or a lamplight. You have to know each of these bobbins has to go over a special number, each goes a certain time, and on all those bobbins you have to work at once.
Blow that for a laugh.
I remember Auntie Nellie wearing a dress almost exactly that pattern and that one over there.
Did I ever go any in my lifetime?
You would have gone into Jackson's in Reading, down on the corner of the butter market, and that was very much like this with the counters, and that had loads of drawers and shelves behind where they used to pull them out and look for what they wanted. Very much like this.
There's plenty of other things on display as well. There's a working Victorian kitchen and a printing press, which is on during special event days, but not while we were there, of course. In addition to everything you've seen here, the museum boasts a nationally important agricultural and industrial collection, including impressive steam engines and threshing machines. They also house the interactive galleries of the Royal Lincolnshire Regiment, which has won prestigious national awards. This museum is also home to the Royal Lincolnshire Regimental Galleries.
Oh dear, operator error. Welcome to floor 1. Yeah. Taking you, taking me. Oh gosh, taking everybody. What's going on?
Brighter over that one.
Yes, it is.
I thought it was.
We're getting packed up and we're ready to go. We won't be back here.
I don't think so.
No.
Not in this one, definitely.
I know thrashing the golf balls, but that was it.
Any what?
Any coffee out?
Oh, I've put it away.
I'll go and get some.
Go and get some. Yeah, take that with you. What? Belton House?
Belton House is...
Oh, it's changed from Walsall Hall.
Well, this is bigger. Better. It's got a proper restaurant.
That's it down the bottom, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Blimey, that's big, isn't it?
Yeah, Lincolnshire, south of Grantham, on the 607. Signposted from the A1, it says.
Right, that's it, we're leaving.
Yeah,
And it's raining.
is it? Oh, it's spotting, yeah.
It's spotting in the
Oh,
wind.
it's not going to be a lot.
Hopefully it won't be that much. Yeah.
We've arrived at Belton House, a Grade 1 listed country house in Belton, near Grantham. This mansion belongs to the National Trust and is surrounded by formal gardens, with a series of avenues leading to follies within a larger wooded park. Belton House has been described as the most complete example of a typical English country house. Only Brimpton Diversey near Yeovil in Somerset has been similarly lauded as such. For 300 years, Belton was the seat of the Brownlow and Cust family, who first acquired land in the area in the late 16th century. Between 1685 and 1688, Sir John Brownlow and his wife had the present mansion built. Despite their great wealth, they chose to build a comparatively modest country house, rather than the grand contemporary Baroque palace that might have been expected. It was designed in a contemporary, if provincial, Carolean style, and fitted with the latest innovations, such as sash windows for the principal rooms, and more importantly, completely separate areas for the staff. It can be said that Belton is a compilation of all that is finest of the Carolean architecture, which is the only truly vernacular style of architecture England produced since the Tudor period. The successive generations of Baron Brownlows made changes to the interior of the house which reflected their changing social position and tastes, yet the fabric and design of the house changed little. In the period that followed World War I, many thousands of country houses of great architectural value were demolished, or had whole wings razed to the ground. In 1955 alone, one house was demolished every 5 days. Belton was fortunate to survive at all. The house had deteriorated to such an extent that in 1961 the 6th Baron employed the architect Francis Johnson to oversee a large restoration project lasting 3 years. Not only was the roof repaired, but much of the panelling taken down and repaired also. New cornices were also installed. There were other attempts made to curtail serious infestations of dry rot. By the time the 6th Baron died in 1978, the resultant death duties, coupled with the rising costs of the upkeep, made Belton too much for the Brownlow family. The 7th Baron opened the house and gardens to the public, and built an adventure playground in the nearby woods to make it appeal to families as a tourist attraction, but this only put off the inevitable. In January 1984, he transferred ownership of the house, garden and some of the contents to the National Trust, who, with help from the National Heritage Memorial Fund grant, purchased over 1,300 acres of parkland and much of the remaining contents at a cost of £8 million. With such a valuable asset suddenly on their hands, the Trust had to act quickly. They wasted little time in producing a guidebook for the 1984 season and opened to the public. But an immediate priority was the setting up of a restaurant, which would not only augment the estate's income, but would encourage visitors to spend more time at Belton and come from further afield. The house, its contents and outbuildings were in an inadequate state of repair when they were gifted to the Trust. Since then, they have become part of an ongoing programme of conservation and restoration. Further revenue has been raised by licensing the Marble Hall for civil weddings, and Belton House has been used as a filming location.
It's Captain Puzzle.
do you think of it so far?
Rubbish.
Don't start that again.
She looks like an oven.